Hi everyone, this is Osler Ortez, a state corn specialist. I am using my Battle for the Belt gear this afternoon. It doesn't say it, but certainly Team Corn. And I am standing here at the planting date 1 Worcester site. And what we would like to do today is go through some of the generalities of growing degree day accumulation, which is a very important piece for corn growth and development. So if we go a little bit into the basic, growing degree day is a reflection of the accumulation of heat units in the crop. If we look at the equation of growing degree day, it's basically the summation of the maximum temperature plus the minimum temperature in a day divided by 2 and subtracted 50. However, there are two cutoff points that we use in corn. Very important. If we don't use the cutoff points, we end up inflating those numbers. What the cutoff point is? You might have heard 8650. Those are the limits or temperature ranges where corn plants will generally grow properly. If it is warmer than 86 degrees Fahrenheit in the day, the plant will cease that growth. If temperatures in the other end are cooler than 50 degrees Fahrenheit, that growth of the crop will also be quite decreased. Because of that, we exclude those external numbers. When we say cumulative growing degree days, it's a summation of what happens through the crop cycle, starting in some cases with planting date or with emergence date. For our purposes, we are discussing today growing degree day accumulation from planting date. On the table, we will be able to see the timeline for corn growth and development. That's starting with planting and emergence and going all the way through the crop cycle, finishing up at R6 or physiological maturity in corn. Some key times in the growing season for corn, emergence usually takes an accumulation of about 100 growing degree days. Fast forward, by the V6 stage, we need close to 600 growing degree days accumulated. B18 or 18 color leaves, generally we look at about 1300 growing degree days. Tasseling or silking time, we are looking at about 1400 growing degree days. Forward into the reproductive stages, the milk stage R3, in order to get there, we need about 1700 growing degree days. For black layer or physiological maturity, we need approximately 2600 growing degree days. Based on that information or that time frame that I just discussed, we will look at what is happening through all our 5 planting dates in this specific location, Worcester, Ohio, in the Northeast region. We are standing right now in planting date 1, and according to our notes, planting date 1 went into the ground on April 14th. As of Monday this week, we had about 996 cumulative growing degree days calculated starting at planting as of now. So we are getting close to that 1,000 mark. For the second planting date, that was planted April 27th, we have about 934 growing degree days. For the third planting date, which went into the ground on May 11th, we had about 880 growing degree days. For the fourth planting date, that is May 30th for this location, we have accumulated about 687 growing degree days. And finally, for the last planting date, June 21st, we only have about 381 growing degree days. According to our checking earlier today, what the crop is showing for this planting date is approximately B11, B12 stage. And when we match that back to the requirements, we can see that B11, B12 stage in corn requires close to 1,000 growing degree days, which is almost what we have at this point. 996 compared to 1,000. So we are pretty close and we are matching that requirement. The theory is matching the practice at this point. All right, we just move a few feet down the road into the same field. We are now standing in planting day 2. Planting day 2 in this location went into the ground on April 27th. And based on our calculations for growing degree days accumulation in this particular location, we have about 934 growing degree days accumulated up to this week on Monday. If we want to match that GDD accumulation to the stage of the crop, Taylor and the team has done an excellent job keeping track of phenology. And the way we do that, after we are losing lower leaves in the canopy, we come and we paint leaf number 5. And as the crop is advancing, then we come and paint leaf number 10. That's the white spot on the leaf, leaf number 10. So what this helps us is now we don't need to worry too much about losing those leaves lower in the canopy, and we have a precise way to account for the stage of this crop. If we do the count, this plot, we checked a few plants, about 5 of them or 10, and the stage is at about B10 stage. Again, if we go back to the table that shows us the requirement for a crop to reach the B10 stage, we are in that range of 900 growing degree days. So this is where we are now. It's a good prediction tool. We are now looking into planting date 3 for the Worcester site. Planting day 3 went into the ground on May 11th. And according to our calculations, as of Monday this week, we had 881 growing degree days. When we relate that back to the framework, it says that in order to achieve B9 stage, you need about 840 growing degree days. So very close numbers. Once we are counting our leaves here, we start off the painted leaf. In this case, we are looking at painted leaf number 5. And as we go up in the canopy, we are counting only those leaves that are fully developed and have a well-formed color. In this case, in this scenario, we have a crop that is at the B9 stage. And again, that matches quite well what we were expected to have based off growing degree day prediction. Planting day 4 now. I am not getting any taller. It's just the crop that was planted later in the year. Planting day 4 for the Worcester site. This came in May 30th. According to our calculations, we have accumulated about 687 growing degree days for this particular planting date. If we go to the time frame for stages and GDD accumulation, we see that for 687 growing degree days, we should be looking close to a V7 stage crop. The good news, that's what we just checked, multiple of our plants here in the plot, and we are very solid at the B7 stage. We are down to our last planting date on the Worcester site. This was planted not too long ago, June 21st. We got a little bit of a wet period back in June, both wet and dry. So we had to wait a little longer here. June 21st planted corn. That's where we are right now. According to our estimations, we have accumulated on this scenario approximately 381 growing degree days, starting with planting dates all the way up to Monday this week. What that means in terms of staging, 380 growing degree day accumulation will put us right around the B4 stage. We did the exercise again as we did in the other planting dates, and this crop is at a solid B4 stage. That gives us again a strong match to the predictions that we were getting, phenology predictions that we were getting if we only did the growing degree day accumulation. Certainly, there are pros and cons with this method. Those are out there. If we start counting accumulation at emergence rather than planting date, that will give us right there about 100 GDD difference. So we want to be careful and make sure that if we are looking at calculations from planting, we are comparing it to calculations at planting. If we are doing emergence otherwise, we want to account for that change. That's one of the limitations or one of the warnings that we need to have for this method. And the other one, a little bit more complex, but later planted crop, like we are here, tends to have what we call a GDD compression, meaning that the values that we have in that table framework might not be necessarily accurate for a crop that is planted late. Why is that? Well, the plant is falling behind and is trying to catch up and compensate on that growth, and it might require a little bit less growing degree days to achieve a specific stage. Some of that can be reflected into speeding up stages, but a reduced plant size. And that's something that we will be capturing later this year with this study. We will be collecting leaf height when plants achieve tasseling, and we will be also looking at ear height in the canopy. That will help us understand what is the comparison between the different planting dates, how tall the plants are, and also we will be counting number of leaves, just making sure that if we planted in April, we have 18 leaves. If we planted in June, the question is, do we still have 18 leaves? Stay tuned for results and more to come. Thank you.